What's up YouTube? This is a first part of fitting ProLine Coilovers from Stands Plus on your T5 van. We're also going to be having a go at the drop links and the anti-roll bars at the same time, but I'll split this into mini videos so you can get a really good clear view. So let's have a look at what we're fitting over the next probably 5 videos. The front suspension legs from ProLine, adjustable coilovers. Good for about 130mm drop, I think, on the front, 150 on the back, or the other way around, whichever. We've got some ball joints to fit. So the covers are perished on the ones which are on the van. Good opportunity to do these at the same time. We've got the shortened drop links from, I think these are from Van Max or something like that. We've got the rear shock absorbers, the rear springs, adjustable tops. All the bushes and the fastenings for the anti-roll bars, which are H&R Anti-roll bars from Transporter HQ. So just because I don't want to teach anyone to suck eggs, I've taken the wheels off, put the van on the axle stands which are on the front subframe. I've also shoved the wheels underneath just to make sure the van's safe, and I've put a little mat on here just because it's wet, as it always is in Yorkshire. First things first, the battery has to come out. Like anything working on your van, it's best to get the battery out just in case, you know, you do catch yourself on any kind of electricals going on and that sort of thing. Just get it out of there. Just before we start taking anything off, we're going to start to take off some really small bolts. What I do is I organize them into something like this, right? Every time, just kind of bolts in the little trays, and all's good. You're not going to lose anything. Good to label them up with a bit of masking tape, that sort of thing. First up, windscreen wipers. There's 2 bolts on this, but actually onto here. Oop, that's tighty. I'm going to take this off. This van, by the way, has 179,000 miles on it, so some things may be a little bit stuck. To get these off, just give them a wiggle. I think you press here, kind of give them a little wiggle, and it should eventually come free. So the next bit to come off is this valance. It's actually just kind of stuck in, like there's a plastic bit which runs all the way along, and it's shoved between 2 kind of gaps in the body. So you should be able to just kind of wriggle this a little bit one side, and it should pop free, and then you can just run your hand along that and get it all the way along. They are quite brittle, so wiggle. Next thing, really easy, we just need to get these caps off the top of the suspension. Mine don't seem to be attached, they're just kind of, oh actually we missed a bit. Got a little nut on here, take that out, and then you should be able to get this kind of tray off, and then get the other one of these caps out. Should say before I start any of this that I'm not a mechanic. I've got a big toolbox and, you know, tools everywhere. But my garage is filthy like anyone else's. It's normally a car in here, but having all the stuff out the van's in here, right? The cool box, the dog's bed, all the awning, everything. But we have the essentials: Sky Sports, beer. Next up, 21mm. We're just going to put that on the top of the suspension here, and then just give it a crack off. Just loosen that up a bit. That'll make things easier once the suspension leg comes off. So we've done that on both sides. I've just realised actually this tray, which I didn't realise was on the car, because this side doesn't actually have one. So I'm going to have to try and find that. It's actually above the battery as well, so it's probably why the battery's a bit wet on the back of it. Next up, we're just going to take a little screwdriver. I'm going to go round to our wheel. I'm just going to get off the caliper retainer. Just give it a little wiggle. Won't go too much in depth into the kind of calipers, etc., just because this video is on suspension. But there you go, that wiggles out. So next up, we're just going to get an Allen key, and there's 2 kind of caliper retainers here where the slider pins, they'll come out. You may have caps on these. And then once the caliper's off, we will hang it up here with a bungee cord over here. And then this we'll leave in place for now. So as you can see, the caliper's been removed. Actually didn't have to hang it up at this point. The brake line is actually quite long and it sits on the floor safely. And these are the parts which you should have in your hand, plus a couple of caps for the right hand slider pins. So there's a couple of other bits to just remove and get out of the way in here first. So some of it is these cables. So this is the ABS sensor, and one goes to the brake caliper if you have the brake wear sensors. Mine's broken. The wear sensor just has this end to it, so maybe I can get a replacement to replace this. Who knows? It's not really important. But the ABS sensor is actually on the back of here. There is a little neat trick to getting these off actually, and if you push towards, as if you're pushing it on to the car, so you push towards it, push in the clip and pull it out. Right, I was explaining that it needed two hands to push it solidly towards the to the suspension leg, and then pushed in the little tab here which freed it off. No breakages like this one has done in the past. The next bolt for us to remove is this one at the top of the anti-roll bar drop link here. That should come straight off, no problem. Obviously we're replacing these, so we're not really too worried about the condition the seals come off in or anything like that, so they can whiz off. They're so cheap that if you're doing anything like this, it's useful just to do them, just in case you do damage any, because they're really brittle. Next up, two bolts which go through the suspension leg all the way to this side. They're actually like 3 bolts, so bolt here, nut on the other side. Can you see that? 2 nuts on the other side. So get a spanner on one side and your socket on the other, and get them whipped out. Next up, a little retaining nut on the end of the drive shaft. This is actually on the car with 200 Newton meters of force. It's quite a lot. To try and get this off with a normal extension bar, you're going to struggle. Also, the disc is going to spin as well as you try to get it off. Little tip for this is why we left the kind of caliper retainer on here, but we can shove in a screwdriver into our brake disc there. That will lock it in place, and you can try and get this nut off, obviously lefty loosey, as with any other bolt. But for us, we're going to use the impact just because it's a we have one is the plain answer. But straight out of there, it's pretty difficult with a bar, to be fair. I'm not the strongest person, but you know, it's a pretty tough bolt. Okay, so next up, we're just taking off the caliper retainer here, the mounting bracket. I've just loosened off these bolts, so I'm just kind of taking them out with my hand. But that will take off the caliper bracket. Quite sizable bolts. Actually ordered a new one of these online. In fact, all the bolts on this, I'm probably going to get new bolts just to go in them all. Some of them are recommended, that, you know, like the drive shaft retaining nut, it's best to get a new one of those, or that's the guidance. The same with anything like your drop link bolt, which we took off of here. Best to get new ones. Then the last 2 bolts, we've got the one here on the end of the steering rack. You can see it's hanging straight out there. We will need a joint separator to get that away from each other. And then on this side, on the bottom of the arm, you've also got a bolt here to take out. Again, may need a ball joint separator to get that out too. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take off the disc here. That's just so I can take this back plate off. When I ordered the bolts, I ordered a few other bits to tidy up around here. Obviously we're wearing kind of 16-inch steels at the minute, but eventually we'll have a nice set of wheels on here. I just need to, 1, decide which ones I want, and 2, find the stock with the lockdown. Right, ball joint separator. Not much to these. You're just going to slide this bit in to where your ball joint is, and then this bit's going to push up on the bolts underneath. So I'll try and show you this kind of one-handed, but I'm going to push that bit in there, and you see the bottom bit then should line up with the bolts. So with a little bit of pushing, this one then became free. Just literally just became free because the rubber's separated itself from the joint. So next up, we're just going to try and get the drive shaft out of the hub, and to do that we need to separate it from where the ball joint was underneath. To give me some assistance, I'm just going to use a jack with a bit of wood on it to lift this up and try and wiggle the arm off the bottom. That should allow us to then swing out the arm. That's it. I'm just going to lower the jack. Right, so that's all free. Arm out the way. Now we're just going to push through the drive shaft. Move the drive shaft out of the way, and everything is now separated. Alright, everything is out. So just put the jack under the hub again just to support it. I'm going back up here with my 21mm socket, and I'm just going to wind this all the way up. Admittedly, now I'm doing this, I should have maybe just taken this bolt off altogether beforehand, before I took the hub off the bottom arm, and that would have given it stability from the bottom, and then I could have just removed the leg from the bottom as I removed the drive shaft. So bolt off, and then this little plate leaves the three nuts down here. It's held pretty well actually with the jack, so maybe that's the right way to do it, who knows. But now what I'm going to do, this could be quite heavy, so I'll position myself a little bit better. I'm going to lift the leg, move the jack, that's all free. So you're left with a pretty empty wheel well, and the reason I didn't take this bolt off the drop link is it was hard to get to behind here with the leg in place, and obviously we're replacing the anti-roll bar anyway, which are the two bolts there and at the other side, so I might just leave that on, to be fair, and take the anti-roll bar off with the old drop links. So I've cleared some space here on the workbench for the leg I've taken off. We're going to need all this stuff. The spring, obviously this one's got lowering springs on it already. The ride's pretty bouncy, to be fair, so I'll try and find out what springs these are and get a little review on them. Other than that, things look okay. And then obviously the perish joint at the bottom, let's see that, it's pretty nasty, so that will be coming out, which are those little blue things here. It's just a little side by side. As you can see, well, they don't look real, right? They look like toys compared to the original. Obviously this bit's going to come off and attach to this bit, but the spring itself, you know, I mean, it's mad, right? So I'm just going to compress the springs, but I thought it's worth just having a chat about the tools I'm using in some of this video, like these spring compressors. I'm pretty sure I've had these since I was like 17, and they were like £10 then. You know, back in the max power days, lowering our courses, that sort of thing. Things like this kit, that they're on Amazon, right? Do it with the ball joint separators. These little tools like £6. Even the DeWalt impact gun, you know, relatively cheap, £150 or so, and you know what, it's saving my back, my arms, everything. But yeah, they're not expensive, and if you're doing a DIY job, I mean, the suspension relatively expensive anyway, so you know, the extra £100 for the right tools to do the job. The one you do desperately need though are these. If you take this off without releasing the tension on the spring, this will hit the roof, hit you, take someone out, and it's pretty fast, to be fair. I remember, you know, 15 years ago taking one of these off without compressing the springs and putting a hole in the garage roof. They're pretty nasty. Just to give you an idea how to use them, we've set them up kind of opposite each other on the suspension leg. I'm just going to take my spanner, and I can either twist them like this, you know, quite a long time. Obviously you can use your ratchet, your kind of standard spanners, or you know, go for your impact gun if you want. So it's wound down, the spring's now loose within the seats here, and now we're just going to release this bolt on the top. Take these two caps off. You do need these if you want extra low. You Transport HQ do thinner ones of these. I think the T6.1 kind of seat and plus a reduced whatever this rubber thing is will give you extra low. We're not going to do that because I do think we are going to end up pretty low anyway. Right, just to let you know, this is a spinner, right? This spins round. You need to lock something in the end. Let's have a look. This is a 7mm Allen key, and then the bolt seems to be about 21, 22. So did actually snap the Allen key. The Allen key is now inside there, stuck in. But I've decided that actually I can get the impact on it. I don't have any deep sockets, so I'm gonna cut off the thread here because I don't want the suspension leg again, right? This is the one which is off the van originally, and these ones obviously have all the thread, etc. already on them. I do want the bolt though, this bolt which comes on the suspension out the box from ProLine, from Stance Plus. It needs this bolt here, which you can see is it's a thicker kind of nice bolt than the one which is come in the pack here. Safety first. See, impact saves everything. 150 quid, well spent. Okay, the reason for that is, you know, we need this bolt to put back on afterwards, and we also need these two bits, so the rubber bit and the metal bit here, for the top of those suspension legs. We don't need anything else in here. I'm going to keep a few bits, you know, like the bump stop. It's quite good bump stop. It's rubber, it's not perished. Quite interesting actually that has a new bump stop on. I'm not sure if that's the original bump stop inside the sleeve, but so then the next piece is to get this off. So really we need to just widen the hub here, and then slide the leg out. Okay, to separate the hub here from clamping onto the leg which runs through it, just driven a screwdriver into it. You can get special tools for this, but you know, a chisel, screwdriver, got a hammer, whacked it in, and then it seems to be quite free. I don't know whether you can see that it's moving, so what I'm going to do now is pull both ends and see if it comes out. And it did. It came straight out. Screwdriver's still in the same position. That just pulls straight out, and that's the bit we don't need. So at this point, I'm going to replace the ball joints here on the bottom. As you can see, it's pretty knackered. The new ones, Meyle OEM quality, brand spankers, come with all the nuts and bolts. So another little pack here, just a couple of bolts in, and that'll swap straight off. One bolt, one bolt. I mean, come on. So next up is the anti-roll bar. When we look at the empty arch at the minute, I'm gonna go in here, and there's two bolts holding on here in a little bracket. it goes all the way through to the other side, 2 bolts to the other side to get it off. Like I said, I've left the drop link on here rather than trying to get this off because I'm not that bothered about it. The new drop links and the new anti-roll bars are going to go on, so we'll leave that as it is. Right, can't stress enough, these bolts are tight. I mean, they're out, but I had to use the torque wrench. I tried to kind of use a spanner on them just to see if you can do it with, you know, normal tools, but it's looking likely that this job is one where you are going to need, you know, a decent powered torque wrench. Right, this is the other side of the anti-roll bar. Obviously you've got the bolts there in the middle to release it, but it is obviously still attached to the drop link, etc. on this side. So look, that side took about an hour and a half to do. Obviously that's to get the suspension leg off, everything off, put the new leg back together, but it's now kind of sat empty waiting, and this side of the anti-roll bar is off as well, so that will pull out when we're ready. But now I'm gonna crack on with the other side. If I run into any trouble, I will obviously put it in the video.